By now you have seen the pictures and heard the body count. 20 dead and 24 more wounded in El Paso. According to investigators, a 21-year-old Caucasian man attacked a crowded Walmart with a rifle equipped with high-capacity magazines, looking to kill or maim as many people as possible. Police also say the gunman posted a manifesto justifying his attack as a response to an, quote, Hispanic invasion of Texas and what he described as cultural and ethnic replacement. The murderer, Patrick Crucius of Allen, Texas, is in custody. As his grieving community prepares to bury the innocent Democratic presidential candidate, Beto O'Rourke pointed a finger of blame.
We've had a rise in hate crimes every single one of the last 3 years. During an administration where you have a president who's called Mexicans rapists and criminals, though Mexican immigrants commit crimes at a far lower rate than those born here in the country, he has tried to make us afraid of them to some real effect and consequence. Attempting to ban all Muslims from this country. The day that he signed that executive order, the mosque in Victoria, Texas was burned to the ground. Those chants that we heard in Greenville, North Carolina, send her back, talking about our fellow American citizens duly elected to represent their constituents in the Congress who happen to be women of color. He is a racist.
Vegas, Orlando, Parkland, Sutherland Springs, Santa Fe, and now El Paso. Just in the 3 years this program has been on the air. This morning we are reporting another mass shooting in Dayton, Ohio. At least 10 are dead. We have the sickness, folks, and it's not getting better. With that, I'm going to turn to Bob Price, who's been reporting on this El Paso shooting. Brandon Darby, who you work with closely, says let's call it what it is: white supremacist terrorism.
That's absolutely correct, and I praise Brandon for having the courage to make that statement. He took a lot of flack for it. Lana Shadwick and I covered this story yesterday for about 9 to 10 hours, and the scene is horrific. And clearly, if this manifesto is in fact from the shooter, which they're still investigating to make that connection, it was racially motivated, it was hate, and there's no tolerance for that in this country. We need to stop that. But there's a lot of hate that comes from both sides. Just 3 weeks ago, another domestic terrorist tried to blow up an ICE facility in Tacoma, Washington, and had he been successful with exploding that propane tank, he would have killed hundreds of people, including the migrants he was supposedly there to protect. So we need to dial back the rhetoric on here and talk about things that will actually make sense and make a difference.
Tony, emotional time for you. This is on the border. This was aimed at Hispanic people.
Right, and I am trying to maybe provide healing, because it is upsetting, it's offensive, it's sad, it's heartbreaking. I read the screed attributed to the shooter, and I mean, at some point, some people are going to doubt if it's his or not. Regardless of if it's his or not, it's that sort of information floating around that is creating these racist views. His manifesto cites this ideology from this literature that white supremacists are following. Unfortunately, other people, like even Steve Bannon, has quoted that same literature. It's infiltrated through the system. But in this manifesto, he basically says that he came to keep the invasion of Hispanics at bay. He says that he was he didn't want to shoot Americans. He would shoot immigrants. And then additionally, he said that he was propelled by the Democratic debates, where they talked about, and he cites all these different cliches and stereotypes, as in open borders, waves of immigrants. Worse, he basically says that Hispanic children are stealing the American dream. I can't help but wonder that, Julian Castro on that stage may have really driven this guy over the edge, and that's really sad.
Okay, Ben Strusan, I know you're troubled by this. Your thoughts?
Well, we're here, we all are Americans, we all are Texans, but we all represent, I think, sort of the cross-section of America to the extent that Hispanics have been targeted, African Americans have been targeted, people of Middle East and Asian descent, Jews have been targeted, Christians have been targeted. So I don't think that it is necessary or wise to fracture up the victims. Where we've all victims deserve, I think, the same sympathy and just absolute revulsion, I think, we all feel on these senseless attacks. It's murder. It's not American. It's not Texan at all. We just don't believe in this. And as to what to do about it in terms of public policy, you know, I'm always careful not to engage in a lot of public policy debate until we know all the facts, until all the facts come out. But unfortunately, we're in the middle of a presidential campaign, and so you see people like Beto that, you know, cross over like that occasionally, and we're forced to respond to it.
Mary, what can you say about this?
That we're not talking about guns, right? That's one thing all of these shootings have in common. You can't shoot people without guns. And there's been, even in Dayton, Ohio today, yesterday in El Paso, Sutherland Springs, Parkland, that's one thing they have in common. And we have to do something about guns. We can't love our guns more than we love our human beings.
Charles Blaine, take it up.
Yeah, I mean, you know, schools, concerts, nightclubs, now Walmart, it just seems to never end. And after these things, we always hear people pointing blame, whether it's to public policy or to elected officials, but we don't hear kind of a robust conversation about, I think, the underlying issue, which is mental health. I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know the shooter's mental health history, but the fact is that if you are going to write a manifesto like that, if you're going to carry out these actions, you have significant problems that need to be addressed. And I don't think we talk about that enough, especially men in this country. I don't think they talk about mental health issues enough. And I think that needs to be more included in the conversation. I mean, people like this need to seek help when they're feeling certain ways, when they're having bad thoughts. I mean, whether we remove guns or not, things are going to happen. People who want to hurt people, one of my favorite radio hosts often says, hurt people, and they're going to find a way to do that regardless of what weapon that is. And I think we need to have a more open and honest dialogue about mental health in this country and what we need to do to begin to repair and begin to heal so that we don't continue to see these things.
Mustafa, what will it take to reach a tipping point in this country?
Well, I'm hoping today. You know, there are no moral equivalents when it comes to violence. I think it's easy to say, look, everybody's being targeted, so there's nothing going on here other than just mental health issues, or there's nothing going on here other than the fact that we've got a gun epidemic. But something is going on. We have a population that is radicalizing. We've seen that. Like, we understand this. This is not something that's new to us, right? We've seen it in other faiths. We've seen it in other communities. We've seen it around the world. And extremism is on the rise. And right now, it's on the rise amongst young men who are white, who feel vulnerable for some, have a sense of share of grievance. They see it from those that they hold in high office and those that they admire. And when those individuals begin to tell them that they're some kind of a dying breed, that they're sometimes attacked, they're attacking back. And so we need people to not use moral equivalent language, but just to clearly say, emphatically say, that this is wrong and that you're not one of us when you do this.
Button us up on this, Bob. Last 20 seconds.
Okay, we've got a lot of talk about gun control and taking guns away from people. Currently, we don't enforce the laws that are on the books. We don't prosecute people who lie to illegally buy firearms. We don't report felons to the NICS system where the background checks can stop them from getting guns. We don't report people who get domestic violence protection orders against them, which prohibit them from even possessing a gun. We don't report a lot of things that could prevent the actual types of people getting a hold of these guns.
We got to do something, and we got to leave it there.